Today on Grave Hunting with Auntie Jen, we're going to visit the grave of Dr. Bennett Clark Hyde. He is the nephew of real estate tycoon Colonel Thomas Hunton Swope and was one of the doctors at the end of his life. He was married to Frances Swope, daughter of Margaret Chrisman Swope, and he is most known for being involved in the trial of the century in Kansas City, Missouri in the early 1900s, and not in a good way. According to records, he's buried at Machpelah Cemetery in Lexington, Missouri. So join us today as we hunt down his final resting place to pay our respects and maybe learn a little bit more about him. Machpelah Cemetery was originally known as the Waddell Family Cemetery, with the first burial being in 1839, and that was John Waddell. In 1849, William Bradford Waddell, one of the founders of the Pony Express, donated his family cemetery along with other land nearby to form what is now known as Machpelah Cemetery. During the Civil War, many soldiers from both sides of the Battle of Lexington were buried at this cemetery. Records for this cemetery date only to 1885, with no record of earlier burials, although many headstones of earlier burials can be found. Unfortunately, records from the years 1920 through 1940 were destroyed by a fire. Near the main entrance are two beautiful stone pillars with information about the cemetery carved right into the stone. And wait, what's this? Here we are visiting the cemetery, and there's just an ominous shoe. There's just an ominous shoe here. I don't understand. Okay, that was interesting. Anyway, moving on. When you first arrive at the cemetery, you will want to visit the kiosk near the south entrance to locate where the person is buried that you're looking for. Since I didn't know where Dr. Bennett Clark Hyde was buried, this helped tremendously. After you type in the name, it will bring up your search results. You select the name you want, and it brings up the info that you need, along with a photo if they have one. It'll also bring up a map of where they're located. Now, you can't print anything out, so I would take pictures of the screens to take with you. So we're here at the kiosk. So we gotta go down, turn right, come back, and it's right there. All right, let's go.
Found him.
Now I think it's time I told you the story behind Dr. Bennett Clark Hyde. In 1901, calamity struck the Swope household. James Moss Hunton, Colonel Thomas Hunton Swope, and William Chrisman Swope all died within months of each other while living in the home of Margaret Swope. Dr. Bennett Clark Hyde was the assisting physician at the time, and it wasn't long before evidence started to reveal the truth, that Dr. Hyde killed these three men and would also attempt to kill other members of the family by giving them poison or typhoid. Why, you ask? Well, Colonel Swope is extremely wealthy. James Moss Hunton, a cousin and sort of guardian of Colonel Swope, was one of the executors of his will. The colonel had decided to give thousands of dollars to his nieces and nephews, children of Margaret Swope, his sister-in-law, which included Frances Swope and the wife of Dr. Hyde. First, James Moss Hunton died unexpectedly while in the care of Dr. Hyde. Cause of death, supposedly apoplexy, also known as cerebral hemorrhage. And soon after, Dr. Hyde was vying to take the place as executor of Colonel Swope's will. A few months later, Colonel Swope suddenly died, even though his condition was improving. Cause of death, also apoplexy. And of course, Dr. Hyde was also helping care for Colonel Swope. And now that he was gone, his wealth would be distributed to the nieces and nephews. But what if all the nieces and nephews were met with untimely deaths without time to create their own wills? Well, the wealth would then legally be distributed to the last living child. So after a few months of the colonel's death, one of the nephews, William Chrisman Swope, became sick and died. And guess who was the tending physician? Yep, Dr. Bennett Clark Hyde. Cause of death, supposedly meningitis brought on by typhoid fever. And soon, the rest of the children started coming down sick with typhoid. Something fishy was going on here, and it was about to be put to a stop. Now this is just a portion of what all went on in the Swope household. To learn more, I suggest you pick up the book Deaths on Pleasant Street by Giles Fowler. Yes, the supposed murderer of Thomas Hunton Swope and other Swope family members, and the attempted murder of even more Swope family members that he tried to off so he could get the family fortune, which ranged in the millions in the early 1900s. So today that would have been a lot of money.
Yes, it would have.
So he was tried and convicted, but then the Supreme Court overturned it. They tried him again. There was a problem with one of the jurors. He left where he was supposed to be sequestered, so they had a mistrial, and then the third one, they had a hung jury. So he never was actually officially convicted, finally, and he never did serve time. In 1914, the case was dismissed, and they didn't try him again. Dr. Bennett Clark Hyde was a free man. Unfortunately for him, his reputation was ruined. His wife stood by him during the whole trial, but it did take a toll on him, and their relationship began to deteriorate. In 1920, she filed for divorce, citing cruel treatment, and Bennett Clark Hyde was left all alone. In 1929, during an interview with the Kansas City Star, Hyde stated, "Don't pity me. Whatever you do, don't pity me. I have been crucified, yes. I have suffered as no other man has ever suffered. I have never whined nor played for sympathy. I do not ask nor seek it now. I only ask for justice. Simple justice." And on August 8, 1934, justice came. Shortly before midnight, Dr. Hyde went to the office of a Lexington newspaper and fell to the floor, dead. Cause of death? Apoplexy. But this is just the first stop on our journey about the Swopes. We're going to find out more. So let's go see what we can find. It's starting to rain.